afternoon. Welcome. I greet you today with the greetings of respect. Welcome to this day of opportunities, possibilities, miracles, and choices. We are here together again. If you are in the sound of my voice and you can listen to this, it's a good day. It means we made it. Some people are not able to be here today. They're not with us, but you are. So it's a good day, and I'm glad that you've joined with us here. So thank all of you for sharing the last video and the last 24 videos that I've been able to put out so far. Thank you for that. Thank you for passing the message on to others. And how has that been going? Last week in particular, last week we had as our mindful moment foundation, God bless the child who's got his own. So we talked about those who have not but trying to get, and we talked about those who have no intention of getting their own, but they only intend to use what you've got. How did you do separating those groups and seeing who in your circle fell into what category and what category you fell in? Hopefully you had some good conversation, some good content. Bringing us to right now our time of relaxing and breathing. What I'd like you to do is think back about a time when there was a song that you heard that helped put you in a good place. Whether it was when you were a preteen, whether you were a teenager, whether it was just this last couple of weeks, you heard some song. I don't care if it was classical, rap, gospel, blues, it doesn't matter. Think about that song. Write the title of it down, and sometime today, listen to it. It's about going back and finding that piece of music. We know that there's power in music. Sometimes we might forget that there's power in music, but there's not only just the power of the music itself. There's certain songs, certain lyrics that as we look back and examine our life, it helped us to make it through a difficult period. Think about what that song was, how it made you feel, how it centered you, how it helped you get to a good place. Revisit that. And remember that you always have that song to go back to think about, to help you when there's a difficult time. Every time we do these relaxing and breathing moments, it's all just something additional to add in your toolbox. You probably have a bunch of things you're using already. That's great. This is just something else to add in, or reminder of a way to use something that you have to help you recenter and balance yourself. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to go on into our mindful moment reflection. This mindful moment is, it's going to be the beginning of the series. Remember I said that I wanted to start doing, and I've been requested to do some of my own content. This is a workshop that I have done for quite a few years now, and it's about helping people manage crisis intervention strategies. So it's about a 6-part series, and each week I'm going to give you one of those. Then later we'll probably go back to a piece of poetry or something, or a quote, and we'll process and dissect that and try to put it in perspective. But this time it's going to be something about crisis. You remember the song Marvin Gaye did, one of the ones he made popular, Makes You Want to Holler, Throw Up Both Your Hands? That's what this is about. It's about screaming. That experience that makes you just want to scream. How do you manage that? When there's no longer any words, how do you deal with that situation? So if you don't know the song, I'm going to put you on board with about 5 different categories. See if one of these things has touched you personally. If so, this is definitely for you. This series today, definitely for you. Debt. Has there been a debt, a financial situation, a financial reverse that you have experienced, or somebody else that you are responsible for or connected with had a debt that made you just want to holler, throw up both your hands and scream? Have you had that experience happen? Has there been a diagnosis of you or somebody else? You walk into a doctor's office, or you get a call from a doctor or their assistant, and they give you a diagnosis of something that you wasn't expecting to hear, and that notice that message is so devastating, it makes you want to throw up both your hands and holler and just scream? Whether it was your diagnosis or someone else's, has there been a death of someone close to you? Someone who you feel connected with, and it was so overwhelming that there is no words for that, and you just felt like you wanted to throw up your hands and holler and scream. And it may have happened 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. It's just that feeling of being overwhelmed when there's a loss of life of somebody close to you. Have you had that feeling, that experience? This is for you, if that's been the case. Has there been a divorce where you've separated from someone, and that feeling of separation and the anxiety made you want to throw up your hands and holler? And see, when I say divorce, I'm not just talking about the actual divorce itself. I'm talking about also a disengagement from a relationship that was important to you. Have you had that? Where you were originally close to, whether it was a son or daughter, or whether it was a mother or father, or a close friend, or a sibling, or somebody that you had a close relationship with, and all of a sudden you became disengaged. The relationship is no longer there, and it pains you at a level inside that there's no words for it. It makes you want to holler and throw up both your hands and scream sometime. Has there been a case where you have been deceived? You thought things were going to go a certain way. Somebody promised you things would be a certain way, and you've been deceived. Deception has caused you to just want to throw up your hands and holler. If you had those things happen, then this content is for you. It's about screaming. So what I'm going to do, we're going to talk about the scream itself, and then we're going to expand the understanding of what it means to scream. So first, the scream is natural. It's our first language. It's the same regardless of what our gender is, what our race is, what country we're brought up in. What our culture is, we all as infants scream. It's by default placed in us. It's the connection between us and the experience. It makes the experience more manageable. Children do it. Adults do it. Holler and scream with something. It's a part of us. It gives us that relief or that release to help us manage an unmanageable situation. So as we get older, we believe that it's still okay to scream from physical pain, but not emotional pain. So how do you scream when you're emotionally going through something, when you've come to believe it's not politically correct? So how do people handle that? Sometimes what they do, they try to handle when they want to scream and holler, they bury their head in the sand and pretend that it didn't hurt them. This doesn't bother me. You know, you've seen people physically, they bump and fall, they fall and hit their head or something. They got a big knot on their arm. I'm okay. No, I just thought I'm fine. People do the same thing emotionally. They say to scream, so they cover it up and pretend that it doesn't exist. And other people walking around say, man, you got a big knot on your head there, emotionally, because of something that happened to you, and you're hiding it. So we do some things to try to manage that scream because we've been taught it's not okay to do that anymore. Especially men, it's not okay to cry out about problems. We hold that in. As many women hold it in because you don't want your screaming or your pain or your discomfort to inconvenience somebody else, so you hold it in and suppress it. And you know what happens? The little girl inside of you and the little boy inside of you starts tearing things up. And what that looks like, you start having more stomach problems, right? You start having your blood pressure is out of control, your sugar level's out of control, and things inside your heart is not functioning. You're not breathing like your little child is tearing stuff up inside. You're eating too much or not eating enough, or sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. That little child just wants to scream and howl, and you say, no, be quiet, you can't talk. Or maybe you lash out at somebody else in anger. And usually when you're upset about something, you want to holler and you end up lashing out aggressively, it's usually against somebody that had nothing to do with that thing that made you want to holler. It's just who happens to be close to you. Sometimes it's a friend. Sometimes it's a family member. Sometimes it's even your pet. Sometimes, because we can't scream like we want to, we get depressed. You know what that looks like. We isolate. might start abusing drugs, food, alcohol. Sometimes thoughts of suicide might come up. This is real talk. This happens every day to somebody. And most of the time people are wearing masks you don't even know. They're trying to handle this. The depression has become just so overwhelming. We don't know what to deal with that simply because we don't know how to scream. And sometimes that's all we need to do. We just need to holler and let it out. It was in us from the beginning. It was your first language, but you don't know how to do it. So that's what I'm going to tell you. So each letter of SCREAM stands for something different. I'm going to give you the first one today. 3 things you can do under the S. First thing is simply to sing. Did you know that singing can be a release and a relief if you're going through something? Think about entertainers. That many of my friends are entertainers as well. And if you watch them closely, you can sometimes tell if they're going through something emotional because they sing with a different kind of passion, a different kind of enthusiasm. That singing alone is a relief many times for things that you're experiencing and going through. And by the way, you don't have to be a great singer. Doesn't matter. It's the act. You can make up the song. It can be a song about what's going wrong or a song about what's going right. You can sing on key or off key. It's the idea of just singing and finding some kind of relief. Driving in the car, you might see people singing and they're just trying to manage the traffic that's going on. Think about that as a tool. Area number 2, shouting. The loud, just shouting out loud. So let me give you an example. There are some people who go to churches and they get to shout. And they come out, man, that was a good service I was in. Well, maybe it was good because of the message. Maybe it was good because you had a chance to shout. And it released the chemicals in the brain that made you feel good. And you released things from that you didn't even know you had inside of you. You're shouting louder than anybody else. Or maybe you went to a concert recently. And you say, oh, that was a great concert, and possibly it was. Music might have been outstanding, but it's also possible that you enjoyed yourself because you had a chance to scream and holler at the top of your voice at the person that you were listening to or the group that you were listening to perform. Shouting is powerful. You think of kids, how they get to release and relieve a lot of pressure running around, shouting. As a matter of fact, depending on what generation you're in, you may have had a parent or an adult tell you, stop running around here hooping and hollering. Don't really know what hooping is, but they would tell you stop hooping and hollering. But that was a release for children. It can be a release for you if you're going through something. That debt that causes you to be overwhelmed, or that distress, or that disengagement from a relationship. Maybe just going to the health club. Health clubs aren't quiet, are they? There's a lot of and oh in aerobic classes and Zumba classes, and there's all kinds of noise that usually goes on in the health club, and people come away feeling better because they not only had a physical exertion, they had a vocal one as well. Shouting and getting it out is powerful in terms of managing a situation that you no longer have words for. You don't know what to do. Get in that environment that allows you to do that. The last area that I'm going to give you is just to be able to speak out. Did you know that there's healing in talking about the situation? Even if you don't have the exact words for it, to be in an environment around someone who can listen non-judgmentally to you, that you can speak about what you feel and exactly how you feel, instead of holding it inside as that pain that's overwhelming, that makes you want to holler, so you don't have those internal discomforts and you're not aggressive against somebody that you don't intend to be aggressive against, or you don't become depressed. Find some way to speak out about what your concerns are. Just that act alone might help you make it through. But you got to find somebody that you can talk to, that you can be perfectly honest with about what you're feeling and what you're going through, without thinking that that person is going to think that you're weak or that you're crazy or that something is wrong. Find somewhere that you can talk about it and not operate with our head in the sand and jump up. Oh, this doesn't bother me. I'm going through the death of a good friend of mine, but it doesn't bother me. Or having financial problems, but I'm okay. Or I just dealt with a diagnosis of my mother. You understand? But I'm all right. And everybody else can see that big knot, emotional knot on you. Find somewhere to sing, let it out, shout, to get it out, to speak out about what's going on by finding someone who's willing to listen. Each one of those things I just mentioned, that first part, I sometimes spend 30 minutes or an hour just dealing with that. You're just getting a snapshot of it. So what I like you to do is look for creating. I encourage you to create an opportunity to sing, to shout if that might help you, to speak out about what it is that you need to do. Maybe even just to scream. If nobody else is in the car and it's appropriate, just holler out. You might find that you'll feel just a little bit better by doing that. See, what I'm talking about is real. Everything that I'm telling you that you could try to manage because you may be going through that, I've went through it. I've dealt with debts that were so overwhelming I thought I was going to lose my mind. I've dealt with people close to me. I've dealt with diagnosis that I didn't think I would be able to understand. I've dealt with divorce. I've dealt with disengagement from relationships that were close. I've dealt with all of those things. And some of the times I was dealing with, I didn't have anybody to share this with me. So this is personal for me, to try to give you something to help you manage a difficult situation. So I don't turn on the TV and see you on the news. You know, I don't hear about something that happened unfortunate to somebody that I'm concerned about. Look for an opportunity to find a way to release through this first area of screaming, singing, shouting, speaking out. Next, consider the possibility of what your life might be like if you found relief for that very situation that's causing you stress. What does success look like? What is the possibility of having a day where you don't let outside circumstances overwhelm you because you've got a way to release and to feel better and shake it off? Consider the possibility of what your life would be like. What would it be like if somebody close to you was able to learn this skill? Because I guarantee you, if it's not happening to you, it's happening to somebody you know right now. And it's going to happen either eventually or suddenly. Lastly, expect and experience the miracles that are going to expand in your life as you become more mindful of your moments. You understand how to use the first language of screaming in a way that's appropriate, that'll help to make you be a little bit better and effective in every area of your life. Next week, we'll deal with the second part. That was the S, the next was the C. Next week is all about the C until we finish the word, and then I'll summarize it all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. Pass it on to somebody. Share it with somebody. Hear what they're not saying. Process it, put it in perspective, and proceed forward. And until the next time I see you and we sit together, travel well with respect.